When you think of Japan, what's the first thing that pops into your head? I bet you're picturing cutting edge tech, unbelievable food, and these perfectly immaculate cities, right? Well, that's the image the world sees. But today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at a reality that's been very deliberately scrubbed from view. So, what is being hidden? Sometimes just a 10-minute walk from the super busy tourist spots in cities like Osaka and Kyoto. The answer? Well, it's a lot more complicated and a lot more revealing than you might think.
Right? This is the Japan we all know and see on social media. It's a country that's famous for its order and cleanliness. It's a huge part of its national brand. Tourists are just blown away by a society where it feels like every single detail is perfectly managed.
But that pristine image is kept up, at least in part, by actively hiding what doesn't fit the picture. Behind brand new fences and locked gates, whole communities are being pushed out of sight, their stories silenced, and their very existence denied. Okay, so to really understand how this is happening, we need to go to Nishinari Ward in Osaka. It's the site of Japan's largest and most infamous slum. The transformation here it's just startling. Just a couple of years ago, the area was known for this mountain of garbage that was piled up as a form of protest. Today, the streets are clean, sure, but they're also sterile, lined with new walls and fences. The problem wasn't solved. It was simply covered up. So why this sudden, super aggressive cleanup? Well, the answer is the 2025 World Expo. With the eyes of the entire world about to turn to Osaka, the city is pushing through this massive gentrification effort to present a flawless image, even if that means pushing out its most vulnerable residents. And this quote right here, it just cuts right to the heart of it. According to a local guide who's actually experienced homelessness here, the goal was never to help. The city just wants the problem to be invisible to tourists and investors. It's all about optics, not actual solutions. And here's the real kicker. To understand how Nishinari even came to be, we have to look back at the last World Expo that shaped its destiny. This whole cycle kicked off back in 1970. Osaka's first World Expo created this massive demand for labor, pulling in thousands of workers who ended up staying after the event was over. That's how Japan's largest day laborer district was formed. But as the economy changed, the jobs vanished, leading to decades of poverty and even 24 different riots. And now, the very same event that created this community is being used as the reason to tear it apart. Just try to picture this. Up to 30,000 people, mostly laborers, crammed into a tiny 2-kilometer radius. This kind of concentration didn't just create economic hardship, it created a stigma. The area got labeled as dangerous and undesirable, which cut it off from the rest of Osaka and created this really vicious cycle of neglect. But here's the thing. That reputation of Nishinari as some violent, crime-ridden slum is now decades out of date. So let's look at the much more complex reality of what life is actually like there today. Okay, the economic struggle is absolutely real. A staggering 25% of Nishinari residents receive public assistance. Now compare that to the national average of just 1.6%. The poverty here is deep and it is very real. But this is where that old stereotype really starts to fall apart. The rioting day laborers from back in the day, they're now mostly men over 65. The area is pretty quiet, and surprisingly, you'll even find a local kindergarten with little kids walking around. The danger is more of a historical ghost story than a current reality. You know, tourists who actually go there often find the reputation kind of baffling. As this one French visitor put it, what Japan calls a dangerous slum can feel way safer than neighborhoods in many other countries. So why would a tourist even stay here? Well, for some, it's the incredibly low prices. We're talking $5 hostels and 50-cent drinks. For others, it's a search for a more real, untamed Japan, something away from the polished tourist trail. And, sometimes, when the rest of the city is completely booked, it's just the only option left. This story of hiding poverty isn't just a Nishinari thing. We see the same pattern of erasure playing out in other Japanese cities, and it's often rooted in a much, much deeper history of social class. To really get this, you need to know a term, birakumen. Historically, this was an outcast group in Japan's old feudal system, pushed into impure work like butchery. And even though the class system is long gone, the stigma has persisted for generations. In Kyoto, of all places, Japan's cultural capital, a historic Brokumin neighborhood is facing the same fate. Just a short walk from the famous Kyoto Tower, an entire community is being fenced off and redeveloped, pushing out families who have lived there for generations. The erasure is sometimes literal. The historical name for the heart of Nishinari, Kamagasaki, has been scrubbed from most official maps. It's a really powerful tool of invisibility. If a place has no name, it's a lot easier to pretend it doesn't exist. Ultimately, this isn't just a story about Japan. It's a story about what all modern cities choose to show the world and what they choose to hide. This thought from a Taiwanese author just nails the feeling of shock. In a lot of countries, poverty is visible. But in Japan, the effort to maintain that pristine image makes its discovery all the more jarring. It's a hidden poverty, which makes you ask even deeper questions about the society that's hiding it. This issue really clashes with these big global goals. The UN calls for reducing inequalities, but the gap between trendy Osaka and Nishinari is only getting wider. It calls for sustainable communities, but these plans are destroying the social networks that vulnerable people depend on to survive. This all really boils down to a question of spatial justice. Who has the right to the city and whose existence is just deemed inconvenient? And it kind of forces us to look at our own communities and ask, what or who is being hidden where you live?